Thank you very much, Tara. So I was asked to give a personal talk on the theme, and actually, when I said yes, I didn't know what the theme was, because I sort of hadn't looked. Anyway, it's a complete delight for me to be sharing some of my experiences of the mandala, and it's called, the title of my talk is Bringing the Heart Back Home. So I'm specifically talking about the mandala of the 5 Buddhas, because that's been a very, very important symbol for me for many years. And it represents, or to me, it represents a gateway or a doorway to the enlightened mind, to realms, to lands, which are more than just states of mind, but they're ways of being. I think this is just something I've been thinking about quite recently. It's not, that we're, well, I think Padre Tara might have said it yesterday, we're not adding things on, we're actually becoming something. So we're entering a land, we're entering a realm where we're completely suffused, permeated by the qualities of enlightenment. But that's what we're aiming for in our practice. Yes, so in the mandala of the 5 Buddhas, everything is permeated, interfused with the fragrance of compassion and the crystal clear light of wisdom. There is the deepest harmony and all are blessed. So this morning, I want to just share with you 2 different ways that I've related to the 5 Buddha mandala. One is actually being within the sacred space of the mandala, and the other is cultivating the conditions to deepen my relationship with it. So the 5 Buddha mandala is eternally present, and all we have to do is open the gateway, open the doorway into the mandala from wherever we are. And there are multiple doorways. And for those of you who are familiar with Philip Pullman's Northern Lights series, I'm just reminded of that brilliant image or idea of the subtle knife, where you can cut a doorway into another reality from wherever you are. Well, it's just the same for us with the mandala. We can open that doorway to the mandala wherever we are at any time and in any place. And I mean, I think doorways are really interesting, and I realised I could have given another talk about doorways. And, you can open a doorway, but then do you want to cross the threshold? That's another sort of question. Or do you just want to peep in and see what's going on and then close it again? It's like doorways are just very interesting things. Yes, by evoking the mandala ritually, I find I enter into a different realm, and there's a subtle transformation in my being. On solitary retreats, my first act is always to open the 5 Buddha mandala, so that my solitary is taking place at the heart of the mandala. And I find in that situation, those circumstances, that the mandala is a protection and a support to my practice. In recent years, I've been very fortunate to have spent quite lengthy periods of time dwelling within the mandala of the 5 Buddhas on retreat to Karshavana. And this has had a strong, mysterious and tangible effect on my practice. It's hard to articulate, but I find that I live closer to reality and more fully aligned with the truth of the way things are, and I live in a sacred space. So my awareness is heightened and my actions seem more significant, and any unskillfulness is intensified and highlighted. I experience an urgency and necessity to act as skillfully as possible and to confess any unskillfulness as quickly as possible. And I had a very striking example of the power of the mandala 2 or 3 years ago. I arrived at Karshavana for a 2-week ordination retreat, and we discovered that just above the doorway into the shrine room, some Asian, I think they were Asian hornets, had started building a nest. And those hornets are big. They're around about 3 centimetres. They're big, nasty-looking insects. And the community had already brought some poisonous spray. And we had an inconclusive discussion in our team meeting about what to do. And personally, I'm ashamed to admit that I didn't rule out killing the hornets. Anyway, as I say, we had this very inconclusive discussion, which didn't result in a decision. And the next day, we ritually opened the doorways to the 5 Buddha Mandala. And I realised in no way could I entertain killing those hornets. It would be sacrilegious and deeply, deeply disturbing and upsetting. I don't think I could have lived with myself if we'd done that. You know, it would have been such a stain on the sacred space of Akashivana. So that incident gave me so much food for thought. It was both very shocking and revealing in that it showed the limitations of my own ethical sensitivity. But it also showed me that when I'm fully and deeply aligned with the truth and in a sacred space and living in the presence of the Buddhas, then my ethical sensitivity is just naturally heightened and strengthened. Because all that had happened, you know, in those 24 hours, all that had happened is that we'd opened the doorways to the mandala. It wasn't like, yeah. So just very, very, just a lot of food for thought. So fortunately, we managed to live in harmony with the hornets for 2 weeks. It required a certain amount of creativity, awareness, and dedication, I would say, on our part, or on some people's part. We found that they didn't like our head torches seemed to disturb them, so we had to have a whole sort of procedure for getting in and out of the shrine. But as I say, we all lived in harmony for 2 weeks and went on our way. And the nest was then vacated by the hornets a few weeks later. So this experience has left me with an aspiration to live more fully from that place of refinement with a tender sensitivity to all life. And there's a story about Dogen, which I particularly like, which I think illustrates this way of being. And I think it's illustrating what Vajratara was talking about yesterday in terms of reverence and living from within a place of reverence in yourself. So in Japan, at one of the monasteries, I assume it's Dogen's monastery, there's a bridge called Half Cup Bridge. And whenever Dogen dipped the cup into the river to get himself some water, he would only use half a cupful, and then he would respectfully and mindfully return the rest of the water to the river without throwing it away. And that's because he felt for the water, and he felt a respect for the water, and was at one with the beauty of the river and the water. So it's completely the antithesis of our utilitarian, self-centered attitude to the world. You know, he just lived in this very respectful, reverential way for all life, all the elements. So I find that that's just a very beautifully example of this attitude of reverence and so on, which I think is just natural. It's natural if we're living within the mandala, and I think that's what the incident with the hornet showed me. It's just our natural sensitivity is there. It just gets overlaid by our utilitarian, more grasping sort of self. Yes, and just one other example of being within the mandala. Last year in the summer, I led a small online retreat from home in which we opened the mandala and dwelt within it for a week. So my home was transformed into a sacred space, and my awareness grew and became more refined. And the traces of that retreat remain. It's not like I'm living in a sacred space all the time. But there's the sort of imprint as we leave, you know, our practice, although it is intangible, it's very strong actually, and it leaves a kind of imprint. You know, I was really struck, Vajratara in her talk yesterday said something about, you know, she knows Triratna so well that when she's creating the circles of Vajra's flames and lotuses, she kind of knows where they are. And there's something about we create and we leave an imprint, or we leave this sort of we leave traces. Our practice leaves traces. Our minds are very, very powerful, I suppose is what I'm saying. So yes, when I'm living, when I'm within the mandala, everything connects easily. My energy flows freely, and I find there's less separation between parts of myself and different aspects of my life. My life feels whole, at one, and in harmony. I shimmer more fully into alignment with the truth and the beyond. I'm more deeply attuned to reality, and that feels immensely satisfying. However, it's not like this all the time. I'm not living at the centre of the mandala all the time. And the other way that I've related to the mandala is to develop my relationship with the 5 Buddhas of the mandala more and more of the time in daily life. Bhante uses the comparison of a precious stone when he's talking about the sort of developments of the mandala. And it's like you might have a very beautiful precious stone, a sort of beautiful sphere, say a beautiful red ruby sphere, but it doesn't reflect very much, and it's not really colourful. But if we start to cut it into many facets, these facets begin to catch and reflect the light, and you get all sorts of rainbow colours. So the beauty of the precious stone is brought out more and more by being cut and faceted. So I'm this aspect of my sort of working with this symbol of the mandala is, you could see it as cutting and faceting my life over the years and bringing more and more aspects of it and of me into association with the mandala, into association with what's most deeply meaningful for me. So over time, I've strengthened my association with the different characteristics of each Buddha. So, you know, I love the fact that, well, they're all different colours, they're associated with different times of the day, they're associated with different elements and so on. So red for me is almost more or less automatically associated with Amitabha, as is seeing the setting sun. The midday sun often makes me think of Ratnasambhava. When I think of air, I think of more Amoga Siddhi. Blue is associated with Akshobhya and so on. But those associations, which started off quite, well, you know, as a sort of, active memory, or thinking, oh yes, you know, Amoga Siddhi's element is air. They're just kind of there now in my awareness. Yes. So when I experience that in just going about my life, then I'm recalling the mandala, I'm recalling the relevant particular Buddha, and it's just my awareness of reality of that symbol is just present in my life. And if I encounter something, I try to relate it back to the mandala. So finding a blue feather can become an offering to Akshobhya. An act of generosity is associated with Ratnasambhava. If I'm in the grip of grasping, I call on Amitabha. At times, I've consciously brought a ritual element into my daily activity. And looking back, that has often been associated with the mandala, the 5 Buddhas. So some years ago, I wanted to make my cooking more of a practice. I wanted to bring more of a practice element into my cooking. So I built, it wasn't I don't think I ever called it a shrine. I made a box for my kitchen knife, but actually it turned out to be, as it were, a shrine to Akshobhya. My intention was to become more aware when I was cooking. But it was, my knife lived when it wasn't being used in this box to Akshobhya. So that transformed my practice of cooking into a much greater awareness. I brought much more awareness and metta to it. And so yeah, it was associated, so it was associated with the mandala of the 5 Buddhas. Yeah. More recently, these last few weeks, when I've been out walking, I've been doing more walking, as I'm sure we all have. Some of it in not particularly beautiful places. But if I see something beautiful, like a tree full of red gold crab apples, or the other day, it was an absolutely stunning white magnolia tree in full bloom. It was absolutely perfect against the blue sky. I offer these imaginatively next day when I meditate. So, again, that's kind of bridging that gap between my experience in the world and the realms of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. So that's a practice that I do. And I think that this approach relates to what Bhante says in Wisdom Beyond Words, that the Bodhisattva quite unpurposefully rearranges the whole universe and turns it into a gigantic mandala. I think that's what I've been doing over time, actually. I've been slowly rearranging my life, or rearranging the elements of it and what I see into a gigantic mandala. There's a way to go. Emails are certainly not in there yet. That would be quite a challenge to find a way to do that for me. Anyway, it's work in progress. I think, and the mandala practice, which we did last night, so beautifully led by Karuna D, which I've taken up recently, this year. I'm doing it once a week. Again, that feeds into this rearrangement of the whole universe as a gigantic mandala, because, we bring everything about our world, our life, ourselves, our experience comes into that practice. So it's a kind of crystallization of a process in a way that we can be doing all the time, and that I aspire to do all the time. And I hope I've maybe given you a glimpse of that. So I just want to end by one final point of how I've worked with and experienced this symbol, the mandala of the 5 Buddhas in my life, and that's calling on the inspiration prayer for deliverance from the dangerous pathway of the Bardo, which is in the Tibetan Book of the Dead. I find it helps and protects me when I'm in a negative mental state. So I'm just going to finish by reading a few verses from it, not all of it. But basically, when through intense, aggression, I wander in samsara on the luminous light path of the mirror light wisdom. May blessed Akshobhya go before me, his consort, Lochana, behind me. So it's that sort of sense of protection, you know, it's like I might be in this mental state of craving or aversion or envy, but it's like I can call on the Buddhas of the Mandala and the Pranyas to kind of hold me with that mental state. So I found it a very effective way of working with mental states when I remember to do it. So I'll just finish with these 5 verses, if that's okay. Are you all right for time? Okay. When through intense ignorance I wander in samsara on the luminous light path of the Dharma Dhatu wisdom, may blessed Vairochana go before me, his consort, the queen of Vajra space, behind me. Help me to cross the Bardo's dangerous pathway and bring me to the perfect Buddha state. When through intense aggression I wander in samsara on the luminous light path of the mirror-like wisdom, may blessed Akshobhya go before me, his consort Buddha Lochana behind me. Help me to cross the Bardo's dangerous pathway and bring me to the perfect Buddha state. When through intense pride I wander in samsara on the luminous light path of the wisdom of equality, may blessed Ratnasambhava go before me, his consort Mamaki behind me. Help me to cross the Bardo's dangerous pathway and bring me to the perfect Buddha state. When through intense desire I wander in samsara on the luminous light path of discriminating wisdom, may blessed Amitabha go before me, his consort Pandaravasini behind me. Help me to cross the Bardo's dangerous pathway and bring me to the perfect Buddha state. When through intense envy I wander in samsara on the luminous light path of action accomplishing wisdom, may blessed Amoghasiddhi go before me, his consort Samayatara behind me. Help me to cross the Bardo's dangerous pathway and bring me to the perfect Buddha state.
Oh, thank you very, very much, Punyamala, for such a beautiful talk. And yeah, I think that gives a real flavour for us of what it is like to dwell in the Mandala, what it would be like to actually practice rearranging the world in the Mandala. And you evoke that so beautifully, and how all your experience can be brought into that, you know, seeing the magnolia or the feather or feeling the wind, how all our experience can be brought into the Mandala and what that feels like. And I think that's something that we could talk about in our groups, what it feels like to be when we are in the Mandala. And I also really appreciated that you started your talk by talking about the gateway to the Mandala, and you ended your talk in a way by talking about the kind of protective walls. You didn't use that language, but the protection of the Mandala. And I think those two images are something that we could also reflect on. You know, you asked that question of, do you want to enter the Mandala? In a way, what do we need to do to stand at that gateway and cross the threshold? And, you know, that, and also ending the talk by that feeling of protection. And what do we call on? What forces do we call on to protect us in that journey? And I really loved you reading that prayer, which is, I was thinking, gosh, I'd really like to learn that actually, because that's something we could bring to mind all the time, you know, when I'm in a state of anger or craving or whatever's going on, to bring to mind that feeling of being in the Mandala. So it's a real lived practice for you, and I'm really grateful to you for sharing that with us. So maybe we could do a bit, it kind of worked yesterday, didn't we? For briefly unmute ourselves and have a hullabaloo, and we'll have a brief leg stretch, not a cup of tea, and then we'll go on to Kusala Davies' talk. So let's have a hullabaloo.
So, Shandavadri, what is it about Triratna Loka that you think we should be telling these people in order to inspire them and get them to think, oh, yes, giving some money is just the thing to do? What shall we tell them?
What should we tell them? Well, I think we've done really well with these online retreats.
Well, they've been fantastic, haven't they?
Have you enjoyed them?
I've been amazed at how it is possible to make connections with people, even though, you know, where we are, little boxes on a screen. And the people have managed to bring themselves in so well.
Yeah.
It really has been marvellous to be part of that.
And loads of people are getting ordained still. Loads of women are getting ordained.
And do you know what? Loads of people are asking to be ordained as well, because that's one of my jobs here, is to sign up and write to people who are requesting ordination. So all of those things are continuing to happen.
Despite the lockdown and all of that.
Yeah. And here we are, really busy doing all of those things.
Yeah.
Signing people up to join the training for ordination process.
Yes.
Making sure that the people who come on retreat really understand what's going on. And then, of course, also we're talking to people on the phone in between times, aren't we? And just kind of keeping up to date with our friends and all that stuff.
Yeah, quite busy actually, quite a lot of things to do. So,
But
what?
at the end of July, what's going to happen, we hope?
We hope. Everything crossed.
Everything crossed.
we hope we're going to open again.
Yeah, I do hope so.
I really hope so. September at the very latest.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we hope by the end of July. So that's fab, and it'd be wonderful to have people back here, won't it, through the doors. But we are a bit short of money as a result.
And if we open up at maybe by September at the latest, would that help financially?
I think it will make a difference. Pranagita's our treasurer. She was saying it will make a difference, but we're still looking to make a loss of about 20 grand this year.
Even if everything's full and everybody's on retreat.
Yeah, so we
20,000
is quite a lot to lose, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So we do need donations, basically. Yeah. So that's what we're asking you.
That's where you come in.
That's where you come in. Yeah. If you feel inspired to help us in this kind of way financially, it will make a difference. And ideally, what would really, really help is if you could give something on a regular basis. A one-off donation's great, by the way. If you can afford a one-off donation, that is great. But if you could afford to give something less, but on a regular basis, the reason that's more helpful is because it enables us to plan. We know, what we're getting in, and we can plan.
So we know that there is an income that we can rely on, and we can build onto the programme.
Yeah. And I was thinking, because you remember when you and I used to do coroner appeals and you used to suggest a certain amount. I was thinking of suggesting £20 a month. If you could afford £20, does that sound too much?
No. I was rather thinking the reverse.
What were you thinking?
I mean, for some people, of course, £20 a month is a considerable ask, and I realise that. But actually, many people now, if they are in work, can afford more than £20 a month.
Right.
If it's something that you feel is very, very valuable, and you can see, of course, that it's of value to others, not only to yourself.
Well, that's true.
So it's a question of thinking, well, it's only us and this community that can be giving that money. Nobody from outside the Buddhist field can be doing that, because they're not going to understand what we need the money for.
So are we saying that if people felt that they wanted to give more than £20 a month, that we wouldn't think that they were being ostentatious?
Absolutely not.
In fact, we'd be quite grateful.
We would be very, very grateful.
But I also want to say that even if £20 a month does feel too much, even a more modest amount, what you can afford that expresses your kind of inspiration, your feeling for the project, the inspiration for the project, whatever you can afford, no amount's too small. Just give what you can.
And it's your
thing.
trust in the project and the process as well that's
Yes.
expressed in that giving.
Yes.
And I think that Vajratara is going to display one of the links so that
Yeah.
it's easy for you to know how to do that.
Praniki,
Thank you very much,
thank
everybody.
you. And enjoy the rest of the weekend.
Brilliant.